This ain't paradise. Your paradise is waiting in the palm of your hand. Max your fist and you will understand. Attack and defense, it's just self-inflicted pain. Heaven keeps waiting again and again. It's raining down. Heaven is raining down. Oh, welcome here in our channel of the Voice from Heaven, listening here to raining. Heaven is raining down, and this is really our ultimate experience, I would say, in which we do recognize how blessed we are by that experience, that connection, that contact we have with the light of God's mind, and that this contact with the light of God's mind is not really some accidental contact, but is revelatory, and that means it does represent my rebirth, my new birth, and it will always be something of which we cannot speak, and we just become completely quiet in that experience and acknowledging, yes, it is happening now and it has happened, and it is not something that can be reversed. It is not something where I could think, okay, that was now a great experience and now I'm gonna go back to the world, to the past, and pretend as if nothing would have happened. No, this is an experience that lasts forever, for all time. And once time is really recognized as being over and intemporal, right, timeless, then that is being home, right? And then there is no self-observation. There is no what did I do or what should I do in the next moment, or how guilty am I that I did that in the past, and what could I do to prevent that it will happen in the future. All these thoughts vanish, disappear out of our mind, because we become so clear that all we have is only this present moment. And it is for this present moment and the recognition in the joining in one mind of our own one mind, which is the mind of God, which is Christ's mind. We realize that nothing really has ever happened. But to come to that realization, I have to face all my past thoughts, all that I made up, and how should I say, sold myself as a reality in this complete insane attempt to hold it real and to believe in its reality. But somehow, the contact with him, the acceptance of being taught and guided by him, made it reasonable, made it acceptable. Okay, none of this is real. I really don't need to make much more stuff up in order to defend myself as a human being in a human form, in a corporal appearance, but really declare and represent as what I am in the perfection of creation, in the wholeness of what my true self is, and how I can recognize myself now in you. And that is to speak an ongoing invitation. That is to speak of an invitation to always remember. And to always remember also means to give everything, to make every possible effort to not forget. That I not forget who I am, that I not forget what has been given me, because those gifts are gifts of heaven. Those gifts are from out of time. Those gifts are coming from our Creator Himself. And we are naming it by peace, joy, love, light, happiness, and so on. But in truth, it is the unspeakable stillness and silence of mind, how we think ourselves by being myself, being yourself, because it is being the one perfect, whole and holy created self. It is the self as we are created by God, as one extension of thought, as one creative action. And in order to come to that realization that this is always available, this is always given, this is always at hand, we become very active in that process of that renewal, of that rebirth, as Jesus also calls it. And we become very active in those means given. Those are the devices that are given us in order to help us to save time, in order to help us that we can really live it also within the sequence of dreaming on earth in time space. Because the truth is, you, me, we are not really here. We are just dreaming to be here. And the truth is that dreaming is not awakening. Awakening is awakening from the dream. Awakening is realizing that there is no reference to the past anymore. Awakening is the acknowledgement that there's an eternal and present, holy instant, holy and whole recognition of self, because I'm leaving literally perception of that what I called makes up the past and the world, or this place of death demonstrations all over, which was a feeling and an emotional expression of fear, of despondency, of not understanding, of complete confusion, or living in a kind of a complete chaotic state of mind. But now that we can feel that light literally, that we can be it, that we are what we are, that we enter into I am alive, which is, this here is not what life is. This is the recognition what I was perceiving as life, as an object of perception, and me being part of that on a sequence, on basically a sequence from past to future, is not what life is. Life is an expression of life eternal. Life is an expression of who I am, who you are, as God created you. And only in that acknowledgement and having that as a basis of changing all my thoughts and the perceptions about myself, about you, about the world, seemingly seen outside ourselves, becomes an experience of healing, an experience of correction, an experience of alignment with what we call and term the Holy Spirit, our higher mind, our mind in alignment with the mind of God. And only in that alignment with that divinity, the divine within, and this each and all recognizing oneness of the singular self that we are, the singular self that knows oneself as being free, as being happy beyond expression, as being happy beyond comparison with any limited experiences on the timeline. Comparisons are seen as actions or, let's say, play tools in which judgment still lives and still hides. And where there's judgment, there will be condemnation. Where there's judgment, there will be crucifixion. It is only from that point on, when we are willing and capable of handing over our judgments, how we see the world, how we see everything and everyone, how we categorized ourselves and our lives, and we hand that over to the higher power. We hand that over to the higher mind, to that Holy Spirit's mind. And mind is then no longer this little mind, this conceptual mind, this ego mind, this mind that perceives everything, this mind that thinks in a trillion of ways of differences. But it becomes and reveals itself as a spirit mind, you could also say. Spirit realized as the capacity of pure thinking, just thinking, not thinking something in particular, not trying to avoid thinking, but thinking as being that extension of that thought of God, that thought of creation itself. Divine thought in timeless extension. This is what we are giving testimony and realize on day 3 days to awakening. Day 3 is the inevitable outcome of being willing to go into day 1 and day 2, acknowledge and admit that, of arriving in time space. Okay, this is a dream I'm finding myself. Whom does this dream belong? Okay, this is a dream of my own making. This is my dream. I am the dreamer of this dream. I am the cause and the one responsible for the outcome of what I will see, of how I will experience myself. And I do not like it, how it reflects back, or I use the expression of the mirror, right? How it mirrors back myself of in separation or thinking in separation. I have enough of that. I have no use of that anymore. I'm willing to change my mind. I'm willing to see things differently. I'm willing to acknowledge that I'm not the victim of the world I see, because I realize that it was me and it is me who invented the world I see. And there is another way of seeing it. And there is the peace of God that I can see instead of this. And so yes, my mind is part of God. I am very holy. Those were the review lessons we just did recently. And now we proceed. We are in the holiness lessons themselves, that it is the holiness that envelops everything I see, that it is the holiness that blesses the world, that it is the holiness that comes to that realization in me that this is the basis of salvation and how the world is saved. And we proceed very rapidly to the recognitions who we are with all the qualities, all those gifts that we have received from God, and realize or look at all the terms that is all about God and how we can understand Him and what it is about the strength and the light and the love and the source. And then there is nothing to fear. And there is a voice that speaks to us all through the day. And we are completely taken care of, sustained by His power, by His love. And so all that is available, all that is given us, but only for the mind who is willing to work his way of thinking to a different way of thinking. So there's nothing falling out of the clouds from heaven itself, as we speak, except we are willing to be active in a mind training, in that mind training that shows us that it is very easy to think in a very natural way and see things as they truly are and not how they were given meaning and were kept in these categories of judgments over thousands of years. That what we heard from our parents, from our leaders, from our, if religious leaders or political leaders or psychological leaders, however you want to term it, or good friends or bad friends. All this is a lie because it is a lie of who we are not. And the lie is based on perception. It is based on a dream sequence that the eyes have perceived and have put into a cage saying, this is who I am. This is who we all are. We are all subject to death. We are all subject to growing old, getting sick, misery, loss, and finally die. And this is the teaching of the ego. And of course, in this teaching, it is all about emphasizing that it would mean something, it would be a necessity for everyone. And all we receive through the teaching of Jesus Christ in that new contact, in our awakening, is that we are not bodies at all. And if we are not bodies, then what are we? As what are we here? How do we meet each other? Are we capable to meet each other as divine thought, as a light experience? Are we capable to meet each other or one another as mind itself, as pure mind, as spirit? And the answer is yes, it is possible, but it is only possible by that healing experience that shows us that nothing is really here what we believe to be here. That means what I believe to be here, me as a body, is in truth not really here. What is here is the me as created by God. And so here is a completely new solution offered, which is the solution to leave this place or this level of perception of time space altogether. It is about waking up from the dream. And waking up from the dream means waking up from the meanings of perception. So we are directed to look within ourselves. We are directed to look there where we are thinking thinking with Him. And only through pure, directed, guided, aligned thought, we can realize ourselves and recognize who we truly are. And then whatever is expressed on the level of the dream sequences don't matter anymore, because then it is realized it is completely meaningless from the beginning to the end. It is a joke from the beginning in the end. What did we do in the joke? We were maybe fighting, we were maybe having fun together. It's all the same. But the outcome is inevitable. The outcome is we all let it go. We put it aside and we ask for help, and we receive that help that shows us that in our new willingness, that represents that willingness to see differently, we can go beyond perception altogether. It is, in that sense, called the objective reality. Where perception is, there's an objective reality. And so I want to continue where we left it the last time, when we were talking about that appearances of images are nothing other than helpful devices, vehicles. And so we begin by seeing that this is just a device, this is just a medium. It helps us to see, okay, the experience I'm having as a human being, if it is in conflict, if it is in suffering, if it is in pain, if it is in fear, if it is in guilt, on whatever level, is really just an experience of transformation of mind. Is really just an experience where thought forms are being transformed towards truth, towards light of heaven. And so, of course, the outcome will be one of seeing everything on that level where, okay, this is still perception, this is still perception, therefore it cannot be real. I have to learn, I'm willing to learn through that new decision of God dependency, of a dependency on a true source, to let go of that meaning. And by letting go of the meaning, to invite that by the grace of God, I'm shown what is eternally present, what can never be, let's say, part of reality. That what is made up, that what is part of the ego thought, has nothing to do with reality. The world that is seen in its multiplicity of trillions of form associations, of appearances, of different meanings, is not what reality is. It has nothing to do with reality. Again, there's a necessity to accept who the maker of that is. And we point always the finger on our nose, right? That it is me, that it is my and was my own fabrication, and does therefore not exist. So my salvation lies in that recognition that what has been put out there and is seemingly attacking everyone, is seemingly a threat to who we truly are, doesn't really exist, has no reality, therefore can have no effects. Therefore, there's no need to feel threatened. Therefore, there's no need to defend ourselves. Therefore, there's no need to protect a thought system that stays on that level of separation. So we were sharing then the last time about these recognitions within perception And there was this example with Sigmund Freud, and so about this teaching of the ego didn't arise out of the unconscious, and there's a lower order perception that cannot create a higher order one. And that perception always involves some misuse of will because it involves the mind in areas of uncertainty. Now, these are expressions that Jesus gave us in his Course in Miracles in the textbook in chapter 3 in the 4th section. And I will continue, and I'm still using here this first version, unedited or almost unedited version that is called the Urtext, in which there are passages in which we do not find in the edited version of the Foundation. So again, I'm where I want to continue here with this part in the course is in that making myself aware that the moment for that decision, right? We were talking about making a decision to see this differently, to making a decision that there's a way to escape the world I see, like it is expressed in lesson 23, by renouncing, by letting go attack thoughts. And the moment for this decision to be willing to be undone, right? To invite a correction, to invite the healing of the mind. The moment the decision is being made and is expressed as a willingness. And it is a willingness to be wrong for a moment. It is the willingness to be wrong, completely wrong, and not to sell what we believe would be right or should be understood as a right way of seeing situations and things. So to be willing to be undone can be and will only always be in this very present moment. We can only express that willingness for the undoing process now, this very moment. And it is no one other than me, no one other than you yourself that has to choose for the complete alternative anew, which means for that God dependency anew, to choose for the mind of God anew. And so, what are the needs and lacks that each human being entertains, that you can imagine that you entertain and you hold dear or you hold real for yourself to prevent this final decision is really the only question. What is it that, what needs and lacks do you see that hold you, that keep you in distance of making a firm decision, of a complete undoing? And so you might want to think about that for a moment. That is in that sense an inventory of mind, an inventory that we are supposed to make as part of our mind training. And so you have given all the objects, all objective reality that you perceive, you have given it all the meaning that it has for you, that they have for you. That is lesson 2, right? I've given what I see all the meaning that it has for me. So we also want to remember that is actually in the review lessons also of the first 50 lessons and of the lesson 3, that I have judged everything and everyone. You have done that, yeah? You have judged everything and you use them to make up and define obstacles, which I would say over a long, long time, right, became acceptable. We could also go all the way and say that became acceptable since the beginning of time. We are actually living and expressing ourselves in that one mistake since the beginning of time. And only that rebirth, that new way of seeing, of thinking, that awakening from the dream can show us the difference. And you then used this, I would say, under quote, realities, right? What you only called a reality. You used this, what you thought is the truth, to justify your perception of being a body, of being this, of saying, this is what I am, you know? I'm this as a fragment of the world, as part of the world. I'm just walking as a mind enclosed and imprisoned in this body. This has been consciously used, these realities, them the meaning of using that judgment and saying, no, this is what it is, because I can see it with my eyes, because I can touch it. And all this is offered us in this undoing process of seeing it completely differently. I'm going now to the Course in Miracles and will read to you a few paragraphs, and let's see what comes in by receiving his words directly. These are the words of Jesus Christ for those who are for the first time or new with the Course in Miracles. And he expresses it very, very beautifully this way. The ability to perceive, made the body possible. The ability to perceive. Only through that ability, it became possible to make the body, made a body reality, under quotes, possible. Because you must perceive something and with something, right? You need some reference, you need some object, some objective reality. This is why perception involves an exchange or a translation, which knowledge doesn't need. Knowledge is direct, right? Knowledge is pure knowingness. Knowledge is basically enter into the being and knowing this is all there is. This is the only reality. This is what God is, right? That is knowing. But perception, in that sense, needs that exchange, that translation. And the interpretive function of perception, he says, actually a distorted form of creation, he puts into quotes, then permitted man to interpret the body as himself. This is the mistake, the original error, you can call, permitted man to interpret the body as himself, which, although depressing, he says, was a way out of the conflict he induced. Now, we're gonna come here to a new level, how we started out also in this class. And he calls this here the superconscious, right? This would be the divine. I don't even know exactly how it was used then. Maybe a spirit was edited in the edited version of the course. But in the original version, he called it the superconscious. And then he will speak also about the unconscious. So as we were already touching it in the last episode too. And he says here, the superconscious, which knows, right? This is of God. Super consciousness is also in the Eastern traditions. This is used as understanding what God is. The superconscious, which knows, could not be reconciled with this loss of power because it was incapable of darkness. Incapable of darkness. So this is why it became almost inaccessible to the mind and entirely inaccessible to the body. Here, right? So inaccessible to the conceptual mind is here understood, but entirely inaccessible to the body. It was perceived as a threat because light does abolish darkness by abolishing the clear fact that it isn't there. Here it is again. This is what we started to share throughout this class today. that we come to the recognition that we as a body or as any limitation are not really there. And of course, light abolishes darkness. Therefore, it becomes a kind of a threat connotation in the mind, because that is all what a human being has. It has its reality as a body. If that as an aspect of darkness is being abolished, is being undone, then what is left? What do you have? Nothing, right? So of course the ego will do anything in order to defend that thought system, of limitation. Okay, it was perceived as a threat because light does abolish darkness, and by establishing the clear fact that it isn't there, the truth will always destroy error, always, in this sense. This is not an active process of destruction at all, right? It's just a word. We have already emphasized the fact that knowing, see, here we are again, pure knowledge, knowing does not do anything. Knowingness simply knows. You, as God created you, you know perfectly well when you let go of the meanings of the past, when you step out of limited judgments, limited way of thinking, and literally stop telling yourself that what you perceive has anything to do with reality. Knowing does not do anything. It can be perceived as an attacker, but it cannot attack. What man perceives as its attack is his own recognition of the fact that it can always be remembered because it has never been destroyed. This is not a literal remembering as much as a remembering. So you remembered, you are remembered, put together anew, right? It's a new, complete new reconstellation within your mind. And from here, I'm stepping to the expression where he talks about the unconscious. The unconscious should never have been reduced to he calls it a container for the waste products of conflict, because that's what it was understood, right? Oh, this is coming from the unconscious, so it's a kind of there. It's all stored, the container for the waste products of conflict. It should never have been reduced to that, he says. Even as he perceives his psyche, every level has a creative potential, because nothing man creates can wholly lose this. God, and that what was also then edited and expressed as spirit, was expressed in the original version as soul, right? And here says God and his souls he created remain in surety, and therefore know that no miscreation exists. And you can repeat that after me. No miscreation exists. The conceptual mind, the ego mind, that's what we think. Okay, I've miscreated that, made up the word. It doesn't exist. Truth cannot deal with unwilling error because it doesn't will to be blocked out. But and this is from Jesus directly, okay? I was a man who remembered the soul, or in the new edited version, the spirit and its knowledge. And as a man, I didn't attempt to counteract error with knowledge. Also important, in your awakening, you do not attempt to counteract error, because it would make the error real, to counteract error with knowledge, so much as to correct error from the bottom up. And that is, I demonstrated, he says further, both the powerlessness of the body and the power of the mind by uniting my will with that of my creator, which naturally remembered the soul and its own real purpose. See, the correction of the arrow from the bottom up means you go first to the bottom of your mind and you see what thought is there. It is the pure separation thought itself, right? It is the sense of I am something different than as God created me, right? As what God is. So that therefore it's a correction from the bottom up. And it demonstrates both the powerlessness of the body and the power of the mind by uniting our will with that of our Creator, which naturally remembered the soul and its own real purpose. Our only real purpose is to remember the truth. Our only real purpose is to go home. Our only real purpose is to be who we are in truth, as God created us. Continuing, I cannot unite your will with God's for you. See, nobody can do that for us, but I can erase all misperceptions from your mind if you will bring it under my guidance. And those are the actions, right? And those are the actions in day 1 and day 2 to the awakening. We're bringing our mind, we're offering our mind to him, and we bring it under his guidance. We are asking for help. Guide us, show us what the truth is in and through that undoing of our own meanings of that what we were holding against the truth. Only your misperceptions stand in your own way. And we know that that is very familiar, of course, because misperceptions are based on the meanings that are given all objective reality, and that meaning is simply not true. It is an accumulation of thought forms from the past, from past experience, from painful experiences, from experiences of separation. And because the mind was not willing to restore its sanity completely, it kept these limited meanings so that it became a tool to defend oneself successfully. Well, it didn't work for me, right? I couldn't defend myself successfully with my meanings from the past. So it is only that those misperceptions stand in our own way. And without them, your own choice is certain. Because, of course, we will choose for the alignment with his mind. Of course, we will choose for truth. Sane perception, as he calls it, induces sane choosing. So a perception that comes from a healed perception, from a healed mind, will also induce a choice that represents that healed mind. The atonement was an act based on true perception. In that sense, the atonement, that undoing process, became an at-one-ment in which the recognition of the oneness of self became obvious. So we could read it in both ways in this sentence. The atonement or the at-one-ment was an act based on true perception. I, Jesus again, I cannot choose for you, but I can help you make your own right choice. And this is the reason why you're here. This is the reason why you're listening to me. This is the reason why you are either active with me or as a newcomer accepting anew this Course in Miracles and what this Course is offering you, offering all of us, offering every human being without any differences, because it does offer a new way of perception, a new way of seeing everything in the world. And that includes myself, that includes yourself. And that is your own right choice. Your right choice is to know thyself, is to know who you really are. And of course, that must go beyond perception. And the expression is that you might also remember those who are familiar with this Course in Mirrors. Many are called, but few are chosen. And that is also an expression in the Bible, right? And that should read. He gives here a new interpretation. What many are called, but few are chosen. How it should be understood correctly. All are called, not just many. Everybody, everyone, all are called, but few choose to listen. Therefore, they do not choose right. And that is the new explanation of that expression. Many are called, but few are chosen. All are called, but few choose to listen. And you are here and you're listening right now to me. So that means you already have chosen that you are willing to listen. And therefore, you are at least part of those few answering. And of course, those few ones becoming more and more and more until it merges also, the critical mass, it's called, and the critical mass where it basically explodes then into all consciousness and is all over the place, visible, and it becomes completely obvious that everyone has taken the same choice. But for now, as long as you see that it is not everybody who has chosen that, you want to acknowledge and accept that you have chosen right, and you don't need to care about of those who do not choose right. The chosen ones, he continues explaining to us, are merely those who choose right sooner. So if you say, I'm part of the chosen ones, Jesus has chosen me, then that means you have just chosen temporarily a little bit sooner than anybody or everybody else. And this is the real meaning of the celestial speed up. We are talking about a celestial speed up, a speed up that allows us to live in the miracle, that allows us to work miracles, because it allows us to recognize that time is collapsing this very moment in the acceptance of the truth of who we are, in going beyond a being right or determining what perceptual reality means or stands for. This is all just, as I said in the beginning, part of the transformation of mind, part of the undoing process. So there's a celestial speed up going on. It is really, are you on that train or are you coming on the train? I hope so, right? And if you're on the train, then don't fall off and don't step off, don't jump off it, just maybe because for a moment it becomes very uncomfortable or fearful or guilt-ridden. It's all part of the transformation. Strong wills, you are invited and dedicated, and thank you for writing here also your comments into the commentary box. As a strong will can do this, and he brings it at the point. If you say, yes, I have this strong will, and this is all that I will, this is my will, then it is here and now. Strong wills can do this now. Only in the now there's a revelation of real meaning. There's an experience of celestial speed up. And you will find rest in your souls, he says, he expresses it. And of course, even the plural expressed as souls is in truth a one soul. But first it is, okay, here are my brothers, and I go along and recognize myself or recognize the right choice and the choice to listen in each and every one. God knows you only in peace. and this is your reality. And to this, again, we can only say, Amen. Those are exceptional great words. I will just go over that paragraph one more. Many are called, but few are chosen, should read. All are called, but few choose to listen. Therefore, they do not choose right. The chosen ones are merely those who choose right sooner. This is the real meaning of the celestial speed up. Strong wills can do this now, and you will find rest for your souls. He speaks to all of us. God knows you are only in peace. God knows you only in peace, and this is your reality. Amen, brother. Thank you so much for being here and for following his guidance. And I'm just gonna let this song here play for a moment longer. And this is our goodbye, and our blessing each other and our extension of light and love. Thank you so much. I love you.
And it's been raining since the beginning of time. It's raining down, washing your tears away, washing your fears